Здравствуй, Vladimir, comrades. I am host Eric. Da. And today I'm wearing a funny hat because I'm going to analyze The Simpsons. And specifically, how those jokes can be understood through cognitive functions, and how cognitive functions provides, in fact, a mapping or taxonomy tool that can be used for basically any kind of human expression of meaning. So let's take a look now at the exciting adventure of learning that we will be directing our captivated attention to on this fine day. I should have done this before I started, but that's okay. That's part of the humor too. You're getting to enjoy me moving this thing over. And who doesn't enjoy that? Alright, so we're going to take a look at this thing sort of one joke at a time and analyze what it tells us about cognitive functions, or how the joke works in terms of exploiting people's various blindnesses in cognitive functions to humorous effect, with the risible outcome of laughter. Okay, let's proceed.
I'm sick of these constant bear attacks. It's like a freaking country bear jamboree around here.
Okay, in this instance, you've got Homer having extrapolated out from one bear attack that there has been constant bear attacks. So the thing is, this is very much a joke about SI, but in this case, it's probably a joke about SI ignoring. That yes, there is a bear attack right now, but if you were to actually look into his memory, he would discover there have not been a series of constant bear attacks. Now, what's going to happen next is Flanders is going to say a TI SI objection. He's going to say, well, I'm citing my own experience, and it doesn't validate with your claim. So let's take a look at that.
Well, now, realistically, Homer, I've lived here some 30-odd years. This is the first and only bear I've ever seen.
Hey, if you want wild bears eating your children and scaring away your salmon, that's your business. But I'm not gonna take it. Who's with me?
Okay, so this is a joke that works on a couple of levels. So first, Sanders is very reasonable and correct TI conclusion that just because one bear shows up one time doesn't mean we should all freak out, has been conflated into not caring about the well-being of those who might be threatened by a hypothetical bear. This is a very FI tool response that Homer has here when he says, like, hey, you better care more about the well-being of everybody, like I do. You just are some sort of don't care nuts or something. Well, then he leads the angry mob down to the police station / city hall area. Okay, let's take a look at that. I really needed to organize these screens differently so I didn't have to go back and forth like this all the time. If I had been a little bit smarter, I would have, but
We're here. We're queer. We don't want any more bears.
We're here. We're queer. We don't want any more bears. We don't want it.
okay, so in this instance, it's a joke about a lack of extroverted intuition. Obviously, Homer Simpson has come up with a slogan to say that expresses his anger about the bears, but he, as we discover shortly, hears this slogan someplace else and just replaces the last part with what he wants to say, which is, we don't want any more bears. Of course, if he were to just go around chanting something, he should just chant, we don't want any more bears. We don't want any more bears. But instead, he chants, we're here, we're queer, we don't want any more bears. And that's sort of an indication that not getting extroverted intuition right, like, that you're supposed to either come up with your whole own saying or etc. You can't just tack on something onto the end of an existing saying that's unrelated, right? So, well, it could be. You could say also it's a joke about NI, that he's failing to see the lack of NI holism in that thing, You could call it fourth slot NI, perhaps, because Homer basically acts like an ESFP, cognitive function wise, in this video. Whether he's whatever type the character is kind of a silly question, but we can see how we can break down the writing, you know. So let's continue a little bit more on this one. No, let's go to the next one. All right. So in this instance, we're going to see Lisa being a textbook ENTP, and Homer engaging in what is textbook SE/SI kind of knowing epistemology conclusion or whatever. I don't see it. It doesn't exist. And then we did something, therefore the two things are linked. It's what you might call in logic a post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy.
Not a bear in sight. The Bear Patrol must be working like a charm.
That's specious reasoning, Dad.
Thank you, honey.
By your logic, I could claim that this rock keeps tigers away.
Oh, how does it work?
It doesn't work.
Uh-huh.
It's just a stupid rock.
Uh-huh.
But I don't see any tigers around here, do you?
Lisa, I want to buy your rock.
Okay. When I first saw this thing on TV back in the day, I laughed so hard. I was so delighted by this joke because Lisa definitely is an ENTP. She plays the saxophone. She always wants to be a little Miss Smarty Pants and gets frustrated by others' refusal to listen to her all the time, etc. And in this instance, she's trying to help her dad out by saying, "Oh no, Dad, you need to use introverted thinking." You see, that doesn't work. That doesn't make any sense. Just because there was a bear, you did something, implement a bear patrol, and now there's no bears. There's no reason whatsoever to conclude that your bear patrol is responsible for that. After all, I have a rock right here. It must be a great tiger protecting rock, because I don't see any tigers nearby. And instead of learning what he's supposed to learn, of course, Homer does the exact opposite and says, "Well, I want to buy that rock so that I can prevent tiger attacks." And this is all part of a joke that's in a larger sense about people's what you might call a fundamental risk bias. A fundamental risk bias is as follows. If you inform somebody about a risk that exists without telling them anything else about it, they will calculate that. They'll include that risk in their calculation, no matter how likely or unlikely it is to actually happen. So, in other words, if I inform you before you go camping that, hey, watch out, people sometimes get struck by lightning when camping, that will enter your calculations, despite the fact that it shouldn't. Why shouldn't it? Well, because, first of all, where you're camping is in a valley, a low ground area, and it's unlikely that lightning's going to strike there. Second of all, you're not going during a time when there's weather, so it would have to be, a surprise weather system would have to move in for that to even be possible. Thirdly, if a surprise weather system did move in, you'd leave because you don't want to camp in the rain, and you're driving in your car, so it's not going to be that hard to leave, and etc., right? Besides which, if you are going to inform somebody of a risk, then you should pick a risk that is actually worth paying attention to. In other words, I can point out infinite possible things that could go wrong in the world in infinite possible ways. And unless there's a particular reason why a specific risk ought to be highlighted or prioritized in terms of preventing that risk from occurring, that's a separate argument, right? And until it's been established that a risk deserves to enter that conversation, it shouldn't be included in anybody's calculations, regardless of whether somebody brings it up. But unfortunately, humans don't work like that. But on the other hand, fortunately, humans are very good at making jokes about their own stupidities, as The Simpsons does here, and we can do a good job of enjoying it and understanding how it's working by using cognitive functions to analyze what's going on. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.